Okay, here we go. Hello to everyone watching yet another client interview. Today, I'm joined by another one of our amazing clients called Luke, who's actually joining us for round two of a client interview. So, if you're actually watching on the YouTube channel, you can check out part one to see Luke's initial interview. But this is part two where he's scaled even further than where he was before. So, Luke, for people that are watching right now who may not have watched the first interview and they may not be familiar with who you are, why don't you let them know, who you are, who you serve, and the transformation that you deliver?
Yeah, my name is Luke, L-U-K-E, Salela, S-A-L-E-L-A. I own Luck Agency, L-U-K Agency. We only focus on real estate agents. So we provide seller leads or seller appointments, depending on how you look at things. In terms of how long I've been with you guys, been since January of 2023. So definitely been a good amount of time. But what we primarily focus on is going to be seller leads via Google pay-per-click, and then having US-based ISAs doing the calling and filtering. So anybody in the real estate space will probably understand kind of the differences there, because I started originally on our last call, which I'm sure we'll reference back to. At that time, I was doing the Facebook leads. I was doing kind of the basic stuff, Facebook leads, overseas ISAs. So definitely made some big changes since that first call. But yeah, I wanted to reconvene with everybody.
Yeah, good stuff. And Luke, just to paint a picture in people's heads, where were you when you started with the program, before you joined the program, sorry, compared to where you're at now, almost like 20 months later, revenue wise?
So right now we're going to hit about 180 to 190 this month, 180,000 to 190,000 this month. So yeah, it's a massive change. Our past interview was, what was that? Like 10 months ago, 12 months ago, maybe?
Yeah, around that, yeah.
June, it was May or June of 2023, and that was around 50 to 60K at that time.
Yeah,
When I started, I was at pretty much zero. So I was just trying a
yeah.
bunch of things out and wasn't getting any results. So
There you
yeah.
go. So pretty much 0 to 180 per month in 20 months. And we're still scaling, man. So amazing stuff.
Oh,
So Luke, talk to me, man. It's been a really long journey. Um, Talk to me about, you know, what made you join the program to begin with as a sort of refresher to people watching this, yourself for the first time, what were you struggling with and what ended up being the sort of trigger point to move forward with us?
yeah, biggest was client acquisition by far. I started out with zero expertise in anything. So didn't know how to run paid ads, didn't know cold call, didn't know anything. But I came from a real estate background. So I kind of had a little bit of an idea of
Really?
like, okay, this is how real estate kind of works. We previously were paying lead gen companies. I knew how much they were making. So I was like, wow, there's actually money here, that's for sure. Because we were paying like companies 3, 4 thousand a month and we were getting pretty much no leads. So I looked at it from the standpoint of like, all right, why don't I try this out at least? And I was watching YouTube, saw Charlie Morgan's video, and was just like, all right, whatever. I'll go through the whole funnel and everything, take the call. And I talked with Sebastian
Yep.
previously.
Shout out to Seb.
Yeah, yep. Oh yeah, that's who I signed up with. Awesome. And really just the biggest thing that I took from it was just how much info you get compared to like other programs, which are very, I like to say, kind of like they give you like all the fluff, but they don't actually give you any of the actual info that's like actionable. So with
Yeah.
like Charlie, I felt like I was kind of like I had to like cut it off at a certain point because there was so much information.
Yeah.
So it's a 3.5 hour long video. I'm like, okay, if I watch all these videos, I'll never be able to do anything. So I was just like, all right, how do I find how to get clients as soon as possible and what's like the most affordable way at that time because I had
Yeah.
no money, and that was cold call. So that
Yeah.
was the biggest takeaway from the program, and then scaled that up to paid ads, and now we're doing like direct referral, paid ads, and some cold call here and there. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Good stuff, man. And Luke, talk to me. I want to pull on that thread there with regards to how the program differed to like other programs, because a typical, objection people have when they come across this, and it's perfectly viable, is, oh, this is just another course, just another program and whatnot. Just to get a bit more specific, what made the content within our program and also the community and coaching calls and whatnot, what made it different from what you were used to seeing? Was it just the detail, the resources, etc., etc.? I'd be grateful to hear like your perspective on that.
yeah, 100%. I think I always want to start with the detail because I haven't been in another course where there's a 3 hour long video on mindset. So really, and I think previously, kind of what I was looking at with other programs was like, okay, this is like get rich quick. Like, oh, let me do this, let me do that, let me this out, try that out. And I feel like the problem with all of that is like they don't focus on the mindset aspect, which is like if you don't actually show up and do it every single day and actually focus on the I like to say focus on the inputs and not focus necessarily on the outputs. Nothing's ever gonna happen. So I think for me, the most beneficial part was probably the mindset part of the program. And that's where I pulled the most value. And then from there, I knew like, okay, now that I kind of have like my bearings in terms of what do I need to do to actually get somebody on an appointment with me and then potentially close them with the sales process, I could walk through Charlie's program kind of step by step. So yeah, started with the mindset, then went to what I would call like the cold call aspect, and then went to sales. So yeah, just kind of answer your question more directly there. I would
Yeah.
say the value provided and kind of like the roadmap provided. And then if you have questions, it's obviously you can reach out to
Yeah.
pretty much anybody. So
Nice. And yeah, that's the thing where it's like one video could be 3 hours, but then some other people's entire module, of course, is three
exactly.
hours, and it's like, well, what did we pay for? So no, that's good to know. And it's funny because I've had like a handful of students reach out saying, "Oh no, these videos are so long." It's like, I know, but we designed it that way so that there's no stones left unturned and you have everything you need. So Luke, I know it's been a while, it's been about 20 months, right? But when you
Yeah.
joined, do you remember how you approached the program in terms of like, right, we're starting fresh here. Talk to me about your game plan and how you attacked things, man. I know you said you touched on mindset immediately, or did you go straight to, outbound before that? Like, talk to me about your first few days in the program and, your game plan.
Yeah, so I originally came into it with the idea of, okay, I'm gonna figure out how he acquires clients, whether it's cold call, paid ads, whatever it is, and just rock with that. And then I got caught up in the mindset aspect. So I started going through and I was like, holy shit, there's like all these modules, they're 3 hours long. And I was like, there's gotta be something important here. So started with the mindset, went through that whole thing. And then that was really what kind of changed everything. Because previously I would look at everything from outcomes. Like, okay, well, I just have to hope this happens. But I'm like, okay, so I'm not putting in an input, I'm not taking any action, and I'm not doing anything that's going to get me to that outcome. I'm just hoping it happens. So that was the biggest mindset shift because then when I went into the acquisition part and the sales part, I knew, okay, well, it's just a numbers game. As long as I'm doing these certain inputs daily, I know eventually I'll get that outcome. And that's pretty much what occurred.
Yeah.
So yeah, just to answer that question there.
Good stuff. Staying on the topic of like mindset before we get to the acquisition side of things, on the topic of mindset, one question I always like to ask people is, what did version one of Luke, for example, look like compared to version two in terms of like any limiting beliefs that you had, bad habits, bad practices maybe. How do you compare to the Luke before that you joined the program essentially, and how important was it to make those changes into that new identity to achieve the success you have now?
100%. The biggest one by far, all day long, was the limiting belief of like 10,000 a month because I feel like it's
Yeah.
so
Wow.
glamorized on YouTube. And I put it on the biggest freaking pedestal. I was like, yeah, there's no
Yeah.
way I have to do all of this. I have to be friggin' a magician man pretty much to hit. And then I realized, kind of like what I was talking about with the mindset aspect, is like if you just focus on the inputs, focus on like the outcome, it'll eventually come. And that's what happened. So like that's the biggest takeaway from like version one to version two is now I don't get worried about anything going on. It's just like, okay, well, I'm taking sales calls every day. I have my team taking sales calls. We're running ads. We have appointments booked. So we're doing everything that we need to be doing. So it'll eventually work out. That's just how I
Yeah.
look at it. And that's been like, I would say that's probably the most freeing like mindset because previously it was all stress about everything. Like, oh, I hope this one works. I hope this one
Yeah, yeah.
works. Because I had one call because I wasn't doing any acquisition or anything. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely a massive change, I would say, mindset wise.
Love it. And yes, those two key things, like the first of which is whenever you put whatever target that you want to achieve, we naturally just put in a pedestal.
Yeah,
And then the work towards it's like, oh my God, like this is so like hard and whatnot. And it's sort of like you're positioning yourself as invaluable almost, where it's like not invaluable, like you're not of value because this is here and you're here. And actually it's a level playing field. Like there's no reason why you can't obtain that. There's no point of obsessing over it. And yeah, it's funny because Charlie, I remember we recorded a Loom about that as well, where it's like, everything is attainable. It's just how you view it. And it's so powerful. And you probably noticed this yourself, Luke, where you didn't change anything in your way of working, probably. You just change your perception in, right, I'm no longer going to view this on a pedestal. I'm just going to level it out and just focus on my inputs. But the work you're doing remained the same. It was probably a lot more easier to get to that 10K per month mark and beyond when you stop this obsessing over it and putting it as something like a major achievement.
yeah, yep, 100%. And that was kind of the biggest thing too, is I like I kind of went from looking at it from the mindset of like 10K a month to just like, okay, how many appointments do I have to conduct on a weekly basis? How many calls do I have to take? And what do I have to charge to get to 10K a month? And then it kind of
Yeah.
fell into place relatively, I don't want to say quickly, but it
Yeah.
was a lot, I would like to say easier than I kind of hyped it up to be. And then from there, I just broke it down by just literally inputs. So like, okay, this is what we need to do to scale. Because yeah, after I hit 100K a month, six figures, I was like, holy shit! I kind of looked back and I was like, wow, I actually did that. And
Well, what
then
happened?
yeah, yeah, and that was kind of the thing is like, I think if I would have had the previous mindset of like putting it up there and being like, oh, I don't think I'll ever do that, I would have probably never hit it. But just the reality. So I just had to
Yeah.
make that mindset shift, and that was probably the biggest takeaway I would say for sure.
Yeah. And another key thing is like I think from what you mentioned there, so many people obsess over time frame and social media and hitting X revenue by this amount of time and looking at others, right? That they forget to do what you just said there. Just focus on your inputs. And when it comes, it will come. Like whether it's in 12 months, 6 months, whatever it may be, all you can obsess over is in your inputs. And what people don't understand, when you put your all your time and energy into your inputs, right? The goal usually comes a lot quicker than
Yeah.
than you would if you put some, timeline on it anyway, because there's no pressure on your shoulders. You're just focusing on what you can control.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I was actually just going to say that. That's pretty much one big mindset shift that I focus on every day. It's just like, what are the controllable variables I can take today that are going to eventually help me out in the long run? And that's really all I focus on. I don't
Yeah.
really hope anything happens. So
Yeah,
because
there we go,
we
man.
all,
Seems to be
yeah,
working. Don't hope for anything. We
yeah,
we operate hopelessly and
yeah.
things turn out. There we
Oh
go,
yeah.
man. So, Luke, talk to me about the acquisition side of things, man, because people will be interested in that. Obviously, it's like the whole black bread and butter of things, right? I think you mentioned when you started out, you hit the phones. So yeah, talk to me about the methods that you used to just crack on, get appointments in the calendar, and just get the ball rolling with the business, man.
Yeah, cold call is how I started. By far the best, hands down. And the reason why, still to today, our highest retention clients are still from cold call, which blows my mind.
Amazing.
But the reason why is you're just like boots on the ground. I would literally just download a list, I would scrape it, I would call all of them, and then I had a set script that I actually learned from the program, tweaked it a little bit to make it more like real estate oriented, and I would just call all day long. And kind of like what we were talking about there, that was really kind of the biggest mindset shift as well, is I knew my input. Like, okay, well, I don't know if I'm going to get 10 appointments today. But if I call 2,000 people, which I never called 2,000 people in one day, that's probably impossible. But I know if I call 100, 200, 300 people, that's going to give me a higher likelihood than me sitting here watching a YouTube video about
There we
brand growth.
go.
So that was obviously a big shift there. And I think cold calling was the most probably beneficial thing ever, because cold calling kind of put me in a position where it was I controlled what could happen. Whereas like with paid ads and stuff, obviously you don't necessarily, you control the variables in terms of like changing the ads and the copy and the formatting and all that, but it's never going to be the same as like actually getting somebody on the phone and knowing like, okay, they're hitting you with this objection, how do I overcome this objection so I can get the appointment? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's how I started cold calling, and then we worked into paid ads, and now we're doing a lot of referral. So
Yeah.
that's really where we're kind of doing our, I guess we could say, best business at the moment is on
Hmm.
the referral side, because we're turning a lot of our best agents into like salespeople pretty much, and they're just bringing on more agents and more agents. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's I definitely wouldn't change the cold call aspect though. That's for sure.
Yeah. That's the bread and butter, man. So talk to me about how far cold calling actually took you revenue wise before you started to introduce ads in the mixer.
Yeah, right about 60 to 70K. And then at that point, I ran out of time to cold call. So that was my issue.
Wow.
So yeah, I was booking about 50 appointments a week, which doesn't sound like a whole lot. Some people look at that as a lot, but it was about 10 per day, which is
Yeah.
good. But obviously, I kind of looked at it from a standpoint of like, okay, we could do a lot better than this. So at that point, I was kind of like, okay, I have some money in the bank from the cold calling. I have a reserve to a degree. Let's try ads. So that's how I tried ads, and then shifted over pretty much around that 80K mark. We were doing about 100 appointments a week, and now we're doing a lot more than that, and we have some sales reps. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, what's nice about the referrals, it's like the referrals are just direct. So you don't really have to worry about, I like to say, kind of like the paid ads, there's obviously you have to try and sell them because it's
Yeah.
sale. Whereas like with a referral, they already know who you are because it came from somebody they trusted. So,
Yeah.
but that's the biggest thing that I would say, like take away from kind of everything. It's just trying to focus on the product. So like
Yeah.
using
Yeah.
that to get people in the door, trying to get them really good results, and then turning them into salespeople. And that's pretty
Yeah.
much your bet there. At
That's
least,
exactly that. So yeah, for anyone watching this, especially existing clients, so you just heard Luke there. All he done was pick up the phone and just dial his
Uh,
way to about 60K per month. Luke, did you hire a team for cold calling eventually, or did you just it was just solo job for you?
oh my gosh, don't even get me started with that crap. So I tried. I went through 11 VAs and had
Yeah,
them all cold call. Nobody would do it. So like I had one guy who was really good. I trained him for pretty much a whole month. And what occurred at that point is he did really well for 2 weeks. He booked probably 20, 30 appointments. And then people kept cussing him out and yelling at him and telling him to, like all the
yeah,
classic cold calling stuff.
standard.
And he just gave up. And
Ah,
yeah, and that was like my final straw where I was like, okay, this guy was like going to be the one. I put a bunch of time into him. I trained him all this, and then he just gave up. And I was like, screw this, I'm not going to do that. So I just went back to cold calling on my own until I got enough money in the bank and then went to paid ads. So
yeah,
I wish, trust me, if somebody came to me and was like, hey, I can help you scale that part of it, I'd be like 100%. But it's just tough because they don't have the same drive and motivation that you're going to have as a business owner, especially when it
yeah.
comes to calling. People can sense that almost instantly. So you have to obviously take that into account.
Yeah, and then with cold calling as well, like it's rare to find someone that can mirror you, where it's like you can bang out 10 appointments a day. Even if you do find a competent cold caller, maybe they can do like two a day, and then you're just assessing, right, I need five times that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's killer stuff. Again, just to reiterate, pick up the phone and dial because Luke just warped his way onto 60K per month in that mark. Luke, staying on that topic actually. Talk to me about what your schedule was like and what your team looked like at that point. Obviously, you had the clients, you were at a good revenue point, and you were still, picking up the phone and dialing,
Yeah.
at that point. What did your team look like and what did your work schedule look like, man? How busy were you?
Yeah. So every single day I would pretty much focus, I like to say like anywhere between 8 to 11 o'clock just on cold calling. So
Nice.
if I didn't have a call, I was cold calling. And then what would happen is if somebody didn't, I always would do a confirmation text. So 30 minutes to an hour before that call. And let's say that person didn't confirm, I would just cold call. Obviously, if they get on the call, I'm going to get on the call, but I would just cold call just to be safe and then book more appointments moving forward from there. So pretty much my first, I want to say like my first, probably first year, it was all just cold calling. That's it. Literally anytime I wasn't on sales calls, I was cold calling. And I still have all the lists and everything for proof. If anybody ever wants to see that, it's probably 1,000 or 2,000
Got your
lines.
receipts.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's like it goes sideways and up down, and there's notes all over the place. Like, don't ever call this person again, like that type of stuff. Yeah, and then at that time it was just me. I had a kind of a media buyer to a degree. I was running a lot of the ads, but he was kind of helping out, and then I just had a few ISAs. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a pretty lean operation. We didn't really have any sales reps at that time just because I didn't even have enough appointments for me to work, let alone try and give them a new sales rep. That was like going to be a complete joke. So
Yeah.
yeah, and then right around that 60 to 80K range is when we shifted to paid ads, and then we rolled out all the sales reps. So,
Nice.
um,
So
but
yeah,
yeah,
talk to me about how the team looks now.
yeah. Oh my gosh, it's
Yeah.
a bit of a nightmare to be honest. But it's what's going on at the current moment is three sales reps. That's like our primary front, I guess we could say, in terms of like inbound sales. I still take a lot of sales calls as well. I prefer, this is kind of a thing that I've seen really good ROI with, is I prefer to take those direct referral calls, and then
Mhm.
I my sales reps taking the paid ads and cold calling calls.
Yeah.
So I have somebody now who does a little bit of cold calling. It's just a sales rep. If he's not on sales calls, I just have him
Yes.
cold call.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but he's not like a primary cold call or anything like that. So I want to make that super clear.
Yeah.
And then as a background, media buyer, and then we have about 30 ISAs, depending on how it's,
Damn.
yeah, about 25 to 30, because we might let two go because we're replacing them all with US based. So
Got you.
now we have 15 US based ISAs and the rest are overseas. But yeah, we are absolutely switching all the US based. So
Yeah.
that's really where it's at.
Yeah.
Like
So sorry, Luke, go ahead.
yeah, well, yeah, no, just to kind of go off that point, like to put it in perspective, for one overseas ISA, or for one US based ISA, they can do the same job as about five overseas ISAs
Got it. Yeah, yeah,
overseas.
yeah.
So,
Yeah,
and the
of
conversion's a lot higher. So, like,
course.
to put in perspective, our conversion with overseas ISAs for lead to schedule. So, out of 100 leads, let's say we had four appointments, 4%, it was 1 to 5%. With US based, it's 28.7%.
Wow.
So it's drastic difference. Yeah,
Yeah.
literally. So I wasn't really a big like metric guy on that front. And then I have an ISA who was like the OG ISA, my first ISA I ever hired. And she's now in charge of all the other ISAs. And she came back to me and was like, holy shit, look at these US based ISAs. And I was like, okay, awesome. So now we're shifting our focus there. So
There you
uh,
go. And it's like what we covered in the program in acquisition Genesis specifically. Get your metrics, look at the data,
oh
everything you do,
yeah.
get
Yeah.
the and it's funny because we for people watching, we don't have any data tracking stuff for, this
Yeah.
Luke situation here. We teach
Yeah.
the principles behind data tracking so that you can apply it anywhere, right? In any situation. So clearly, Luke, on your end, you spotted this, and now it's a massive, massive change you're going to make, which can yield in way better results than you're already getting.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, we track based off like four KPIs, which I learned exactly from Charlie. And that's the hardest thing. I'll be honest with you, that is the hardest thing in the world to track. I am so bad at tracking metrics. That's luckily I have somebody who's very good at that that's on the team. But
Yeah,
really what we track is like cost per lead. We're going to track lead to schedule. So how many leads into how many appointments, what's the show up rate, what's the overall conversion. Those are the
yeah,
four. And then
that's
we have
it.
ratings. So
It's
yeah.
that simple. When you understand, it comes back to like the inputs as well, man. When it's like, oh, we got this problem, we got that problem. It's like, all right, what are your inputs? What does your data look like? Like I always get it in the school community. It's like, oh, my email's not working. Oh, what's
Yeah.
your data look like? I only sent 50. I'm like, 50? What
Oh yeah.
the follow-ups incomplete? Like, come on, man. Just
Yeah.
send like 200, get back to me, and then I can, fix things. Or maybe there's no need to fix things because you might be in KPI. So that's killer stuff, Luke. So when you joined the program, it was just you, right? It was just you. There was no
Yeah.
business partner, no team. You were just on a solo Rambo job. Like it was just you.
Yeah. Yeah. No business partners still to today.
Yeah. So just one
Kind
one
of
person.
hours.
Well, one person all the way in 20 months, you got a team of 35 almost. I know it's gonna be cut down with the ISAs.
Yeah, we'll see how their
That's
Friday
insane,
goes.
man.
But yeah, yeah, we've scaled up. And here's another thing that we could talk about is the payroll situation. That is blowing my mind because I went from paying pretty much next to nobody. I really had no employees when I started off to now switching over US based. All obviously all the salaries are going to pretty much triple to it more than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been that's been kind of a big mindset shift as well. So I'm kind of like, all right, how did I get here? Just focus on the let's just focus on that
You've
again. Yeah.
you've just been focusing so much on the inputs. You don't know what's going on. The revenue's going up and the
Oh,
back end's going crazy. So
oh, yeah,
no, it's amazing, man. Great stuff. So one thing I want to talk about, Luke, and again, we spoke about this just before the call
yeah,
and touched on it briefly earlier on, which is a massive part you're making. Talk to me about fulfillment, man, and how, it's different now. Because obviously, like you said to me, like that you changed everything and the way you're delivering now, it's a lot better compared to where before. So just walk us through that.
100%. So that was kind of like what we were talking about. That's the biggest reason why we're scaling how we are now is because we're getting direct agent referrals. So
Hmm.
when we first started, we were running Facebook ads. Everybody does this. Buyer type of homes list campaigns, the traditional stuff. And then overseas ISAs calling and filtering. Those results were extremely inconsistent. We'll put it that way. That was kind of the issue there. And then what occurred is I was like, okay, so obviously in the real estate space, anybody who's in the real estate marketplace or space to a degree knows what's kind of occurring now with the NAR and all that kind of stuff. So we don't have to get into that because it's a lot of little fine details, but pretty much buyers are not the best. We'll just say that. So we shifted to sellers last year, which was kind of a blessing in disguise because at the time I was kind of like, okay, if we shift to sellers, it's going to be a complete headache to deal with because it's a lot harder to get sellers than it is to get buyers. But it was the best decision we ever made. So we shifted over to Google. We don't do anything on Facebook anymore. And then we changed up our campaigns and kind of what we're targeting. So yeah, that was probably the biggest change I would say is platform. And then from there, switching over to US based. We're not fully US based yet, so I can't really speak to that. But as of now, the conversion is a lot higher with US based. So
Yeah.
uh, and we're actually in the process of potentially acquiring a US based ISA call center. If we can get that to work, that would be huge. In terms of like, we would pretty much take our cost and cut it like in a quarter. So,
Wow.
uh, yeah. And then from there, what we'd also be able to do is provide like the ISA services to other companies as well. So,
Yeah.
um, that's kind of the biggest shift for buyers to sellers.
It's like a machine gun, man. You just get things going and going and going.
Oh,
You don't
yep.
stop.
We
That's
try
it.
to keep momentum. So, yeah.
There we go, man. Look, talk to me about so when it comes to the fulfillment side of things, I know you mentioned like right, you used to do the standard buyer seller leads and now it's direct referrals. What's like
Yeah.
the key difference between that? So like direct referrals, is it like, one step beyond the lead itself or, to people wondering, including myself?
Oh, so by direct referrals, I mean like in terms of like getting new agents in as clients, we're having current agents referring them.
Oh yeah, 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 got it, got it, got
Yeah,
it,
we still run kind of like the traditional like agency model, kind of with the retainer, but now we work on performance. So
got it.
that's
Yeah,
kind of like revenue wise, that's where we've seen the biggest jump because you can only really bring on so many people at a $1,500 or $2,500 retainer. But when you do it kind of a different way, which I don't know if we should probably get into, but because somebody's gonna take this for sure. But the way we do it is there's a fee associated, and then we take a pay after close pretty much. So
yeah, there we
and
go.
yeah, and we're very, very confident with the results. So for us, it makes it a lot easier because we're like, okay, maybe we take a little bit of a potential hit on the front end, but we know we're going to make it back 5 to 10 times on the back end, and that's
Yeah,
what we've been.
there
So
we go. Luke, talk to me about you know, how your days are right now. Is it the same when you were doing 60K per month? Are you less busy, more busy, or how's it looking for you? Like work schedule? Wow.
yeah, so currently I like to fill my schedule all day long every day. That's kind of the goal. I like always being busy. If I don't have anything
Yeah.
going on, I kind of like freak out a little bit, to be honest. So I always do a team call. That's been kind of the biggest change. So 8 to 10 every day we do a team call, and then from there we pretty much focus. I like to focus the rest of the day on either following up with the ISAs to make sure everybody's doing everything correctly, and following up with our manager Emily, or obviously taking calls with new direct referrals. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the primary focus at the moment. And then if I need to change some things here and there, if I need to take some time out, I have the ability to do that, which is nice as well. So it's not like a fixed schedule, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Nice. Good stuff, man. Um, Luke, when you joined the program, obviously you spoke with Seb at the time. Naturally, one of the most typical questions that every customer receives is,
Yeah.
wait, what do you want to achieve? How would this change your life, etc., etc. So fast forward 20 months later, man, have you taken it in to see what you've achieved? And yeah, man, how does your life look now compared to how it looks before? Have you taken time to reflect and really, soak in what you've done?
I try not to, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of stupid, but I try not to just because I'm kind of one of those people where I don't want to say I get complacent, but after I see that type of thing, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I can kind of let off a little bit.
Yeah.
That's not what I want to happen. So, obviously, drastic changes. So, like, I went from having a little office that I was renting for $600 a month, and my first testimonial, you'll see that little white office
Oh
that
yeah,
fits.
yeah. I remember.
I think it was actually 50 square feet.
Yeah, yeah.
Now I have
Done the
a
job.
office, yeah, and an apartment. So yeah, I have two locations, which is nice. So yeah, definitely a big change there. I don't know, car stuff. I don't know. I don't know if we talked about this before, but like goal was to get a pretty cool car. Got an AMG GTS Mercedes, and
There we
then
go.
I have a Huracan on the way. So Lambo. So that's something cool
Oh,
there. Uh,
you
that's
just
for
you just snuck that one in there. Yeah, just getting a lamp out the way.
But yeah, once again, it's like I don't like focusing on that kind of stuff because I'm very much I think that's kind of my past personality, and I
Yeah,
just don't want to go back to that. So
yeah, yeah.
but yeah,
I,
definitely a
I,
difference.
I always like spring in that question, man, because everyone I've interviewed, right? Maybe barring one or two, every time I drop that question, they always say to me, "Oh, I haven't thought about that. No, I'm just, focusing on forward." I'm like, "You're so boring, man. Like,
Yeah, oh yeah.
celebrate your success. You've done amazing work here." But to be honest, Luke, I'm glad you did take some time to enjoy yourself with the car. And also, there's a new one coming, the Lambo. So we could paint you as the real estate guru if you
Oh, there
want.
we go. There we go. Look at that. I'm gonna start selling a course. No, just kidding.
There we go. See, watch out for Luke's course, man. But no, seriously, amazing stuff, man. Amazing stuff. And you know, I know you said, Luke, you don't tend to ponder over it because, again, naturally you may be worried about settling, and we spoke, and you just want to keep on going and going and going. But like, simple question, man, how does it feel to be in this position where like everything's working, you've absolutely smashed it, and you're still scaling up? Like, how does it feel?
Yeah, feels very good. I'll say that. But obviously, kind of like with how it is. It's like new levels, new devils. So it's like there's always like a
Yeah,
new
yeah,
problem, which is good. So for me, it's like now I'm kind of setting my benchmark at a certain monthly retainer value.
yeah.
So for me, it's like, okay, I need to always be striving to at least surpass this. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of interesting. You hit 100K, and you feel like, oh my gosh, I hit 100K. And then you hit 100K and you're like, oh, I cannot go below 150K. So then you're stressing about that. And then you forget you're past 100K. It's like, it kind of blows my mind sometimes, like the type of like little problems that I like work myself up over. I'm like, oh my gosh, well, what about this? What about that? But yeah, really kind of like what I'm focusing on doing is I just want to get to 500K. That's the goal. So
Yeah.
that's like my all of my attention is currently there. We'll see, but I know if I focus on the inputs, we reinvest enough back into it, we can eventually get there. So just to kind of answer your question there, that's pretty much my main focus that's been taking up a lot of my time. So
Yeah. Killer stuff, man. Amazing stuff. With the 500K per month goal, um, how do you envision things changing from your end from a team standpoint? Is there any going to be anything new added to the mix, or is it just a matter of, tripling down on what you already have, scaling up ad spend, all these good things?
yeah, so I think like the system that we have currently with Google and focusing on sellers, I think that can scale to that level. So I think that part's good. With me, it's just finding like A players pretty much. Because we have a good amount of employees now, but really to get to that level that I want to get to, you know how it is. You're going to have to either hire a lot better
Yep.
people or you're going to have to hire more people. So that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out. And I don't have the expertise in terms of hiring that a lot of other people do. So I've been learning it as I go. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's definitely been a new level because I'm kind of one of those types of guys who's like, okay, this guy sounds like he's a good choice, and then he doesn't do anything for 2 weeks, and you're like, okay, now we have to get rid of him. So,
Yeah.
uh,
It's
but
it's
yeah,
it's a really interesting dynamic because when you get to 100K per month, it's like you're clearly a good entrepreneur. You got a great product. You can sell fantastic. But then when you want to get to 100, from 100K to 500K per month and beyond, it's like being an entrepreneur is in the bin. We need you to become a world-class recruiter. So
yeah,
it's,
oh
so it's like, right, you see the sales stuff, fulfillment stuff, that's cute. But
yeah,
now you need to understand human psychology, people, managing them, leading them. And then when you're coming from someone, even like yourself, Luke, where you were just Rambo in business, where it's just you yourself
yeah,
picking up the phone, fulfilling and everything. It's like, oh, yeah, like I gotta be a recruiter now. This is a whole new world.
yeah. That's like kind of like blew my mind to a degree. It's like I
Mm,
went from kind of thinking I had to do every single role to like, okay, I'm not good at this, I'm not good at this, and I'm not good at this. So why do I keep focusing my time on that? And really kind of the biggest shift was for me was just being able to focus on the sales end. And then I have somebody who can focus on the back end. So
yeah,
that was the biggest, I like to say, like I think that was kind of what allowed me to level up at the speed because I knew like what my strength was. And what's also nice, and I'm happy about this, is I didn't take on a partner. I feel like I see that a lot where like
yeah,
guy who's really good on the back end, really good on the front end, which I'm sure that works 100%, but just with me, I'm kind of a little bit like hard-headed, so it's kind of hard to work with a partner to a degree. So I just was very fortunate. I ran into a really, really good media buyer who knows what he's doing. And then Emily, my ISA, my head ISA who trains all the other ones, she's really good at what she does and she cares about her job. So like
yeah,
those are two key components that I'm just going to be honest. I probably got lucky hiring both of them because Emily was literally my first ISA. So like that was just
yeah.
kind of luck at that point. But yeah, now scaling up, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm taking interviews and all this stuff. And I'm just not the biggest fan of that. So
You know,
yeah,
you'll be fine, man. Like the way you hammered the phones down, built the business to where it is and whatnot. The recruiting side, I'm sure you'll get the hang of it. And it's funny because Luke, you've probably already started doing this. Is like, right, how am I going to get better at recruiting? Just focus on inputs. Let me not put recruiting on a pedestal here. Let me just focus on what I need to do, and it's going to
yeah,
naturally come to you. So yeah,
yeah.
man, that's stuff.
One big like free tip I'll give everybody is in the ISA side of things. I don't know how many people have inside sales agents, but if you have some inside sales agents who really like working at your business, I've seen a huge ROI on that. I just give them an incentive to bring on more ISAs, and that's really how we've scaled up. So
Yeah.
now we have to do the whole like zip recruiter and all this stuff, run ads, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, can we just find more people who know other ISAs and just hire all of
That's
them?
it.
But you know how it is. It's like you got to get to that certain level. And a lot of those like AA players, you have to pretty much pull them from different
Yeah,
positions. So
exactly that, man. Exactly that. Great stuff. Um, Luke, as we sort of round up the interview, man, one of the things I actually wanted to touch on was what you said when it's like, right, the monthly revenue is going to be your minimum, whatnot. It just comes back to the point I think Charlie mentioned in the mindset module. You want your original ceiling to become the floor. So
Yeah.
that's like your minimum standard now, right? And
Yeah.
it's like you're gonna get a new ceiling now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of scary how that happens too, because
Yeah.
you like, yeah, you don't really like feel like, I don't know. I don't feel like a completely different, well, mentally, I feel like a completely different person, but like, you know
Yeah.
how it is. Like, I don't like, it's kind of like we could talk about it for hours, but really kind of what I saw is like I used to see that 10K is like impossible. And then you hit 10K and then you see 10K is like, holy cow, if I don't go under 10K, like what am I doing? And then
Mm,
you get 30 and then 40 and then 50 and then you just keep going up from there. And it's like you never really want to digress below
yeah.
that goal degree. So,
That's
and
it.
that's kind of like with me, I just keep raising it and raising it. And I think 500's a good one where it's like, okay, it's going to give me some time to hit this, but it always is like kind of like a North Star. Whereas like if I
Yeah.
go like 250 or 210 or something like that, I think I can hit that probably a lot sooner than obviously 500. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of just my way of looking at it. I could be wrong though. Who knows? So,
No, it's working, man. Keep
yeah,
doing whatever
probably
it is
working. Yeah.
you're doing. So yeah, killer stuff, man. So Luke, as we sort of wrap things up, typically there's two groups of people, right, that watch these interviews. The first of which are current clients within the school group, and the second of which are, people that have yet to purchase the program. To the
Yeah.
people that are, current clients, fellow students, right, just like yourself, especially to those that are maybe they're starting out, maybe they're even struggling, what would your key pieces of advice be to succeed based off of your 20 months working with us, man?
Yeah, biggest thing is just find out what your inputs are and only do those. That's my advice. So,
Yeah.
if that means cold calling or if that means email or whatever it may be, just figure that aspect out. And obviously, you're already in the program, so I'm talking to those people. But
Yeah.
if you're in the program, just use what's already in the program. So, like, I know
Yeah.
the email scripts work, I know the cold call scripts work because I've used them. So, just use that. It's like I feel like that whole thing is just kind of like eliminating the excuses to a degree. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's my biggest advice is just kind of figure out what your inputs are, work those, and then don't focus on the outcome, and it'll eventually come.
There we
Um,
go.
and for new people, I would say definitely, I feel like there's a million kind of different ways you could look at it. Like if you're looking to, like if you already have some experience, like let's say you came from a different program or something like that, you're gonna get a lot more value if you know what you're focusing on, if that makes sense. So like if you go into it, go through the whole mindset part and then go into like the acquisition part, you'll get a lot more out of it than other programs because I've seen a lot of other programs. So, and yeah, honestly, I would say like just kind of figure out what your goal is to a degree and then talk with somebody, either obviously on the sales call or something like that, and kind of figure out what the best plan of action is. So,
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, it definitely works. I'll tell you that. That's for
Yeah.
that for sure. So, but yeah, I feel like it's kind of the same with everything. It's like if you're not going to put the work in, it's never going to work anyway. So, just something to keep in mind there.
Exactly that. And yeah, 100% with this, it's a part two. I'm definitely gonna chase up Luke for part three when he
Oh
hits
yeah, 500.
500K per month. I've got your number, Luke, and I'm gonna
Oh
keep chasing, man. So keep me posted. So good stuff to everyone watching. Keep an eye out for part three with Luke. And yeah, as we sort of round things up,
yeah.
as Luke just said there in the end, just like with everything, if you put in the work and you're willing to work, there's no reason why the program uh, won't work for you. And Luke, one of the things I always say at the end of all my interviews, it's become like my brand or my staple at this point are these following lines. If you're someone watching the interview and you want to join the program and you just want a magic pill to swallow where you swallow it and then oh look 180K per month in 1 week is there, Mercedes there, Huracan there, nice apartment there. This program isn't for you. I'm just going to be fully transparent with you. Okay. If you are being fooled by social media and the marketing with the Ferraris, the watches and whatnot, and they make it look easy. And it's something that you can get quick. This program's probably not going to be a good fit for you because the program requires work, and Luke and all the other clients are, proof of that. Okay. Now, if you're someone that's willing to follow a proven framework, willing to put in the work, willing to, work with the relevant coaches to assist you in getting you to where you need to be, just like Luke did, then absolutely this program could be a great fit for you. And feel free to go ahead and book a call with us. But again, for those of you that want a get rich quick scheme, this isn't going to be that. So if you do manage to find a get rich quick scheme where you can, have a chocolate bar and boom, you're like Luke, 180K per month in just one bite. let me know. I'd love that
Let us know.
myself. Yeah, let Luke know as well. But until then, man, our program is gonna give you everything you need to succeed. Okay, whilst it may not necessarily be easy, it's certainly simple. Okay, but that doesn't mean it's easy. You still need to put in the work on your end. You still need to face challenges. Still need to figure things out, and it will be with you every step of the way. So feel free to book a call with us. And if you're on the fence, feel free to check out some of the other interviews that we've got going on. I think we've got about 80 by this point. So yeah, feel free to check them out and see what's what. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the interview, guys. Luke, appreciate you joining me on part two. Thank you so much, man. And for those that are watching, again, like I said, keep an eye out for part three because I'm going to chase Luke down once he gets that 500K per month. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day and I'll catch you in the next interview. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks.